Well, I know that we are talking about IT service management, but I'm just tempted to talk about business relationship management because one of the fundamental focus is IT should never be an order taker. How can we become a strategic partner and we focus on convergence? So one of the things that I would recommend by with my own experience helping organizations is to look at business relationship management as a capability, as a discipline and a body of knowledge that will help people to understand how they can have those steps focused to become strategic partners where they can be more engaged and get a seat at the table. So I think we'll start with some of the basics, right? Before we get into what new framework we have got, what practical guidance, let's first leverage what is already available. So with ITIL 4, there is a supplementary guidance that is being provided as part of all the modules. So that's a good starting point to look at it. The other part that I think is important is to understand a little more about value stream management. People, when I talk with a lot of people, they struggle to talk about value chains and value streams. So IT for IT is a very good framework towards focusing on Porter's value chains. So that's a good way to start with. But I think leverage what is already available as part of your supplementary guidance rather than searching in all over the place. So let's leverage what is already available and then move on. It's all about service at the end of the day. Whatever we buy, product or things, it's all boils down to service where actual value is realized. So for me, I think when I started, the whole point of fit for purpose and fit for use, that utility and warranty has stayed permanently in my life. So that was the hallmark of what we will apply in all walks. So I'm glad that I got it much earlier in my life cycle. I think that's a very important question, Nick. One of the things I think we need to take a step back is about mental health and well being. Today, with this pandemic, we have seen a lot more pressure towards handling and coping up with changes. So we need to be very sensitive towards people' ability to have think tank time. So, in my earlier experience of managing a large scale operations team, they are working 24 cross 7, 365 days, and they really don't have think tank time. They've been constantly looking at firefighting of things, and which puts people into a bad shape. And a lot of times, burnout comes as a last resort. And what we have seen, and it is important, is to have this one on one conversation with your teams to take some free time for themselves and for their personal time. Because as important as the productivity of the work, getting time off and having good sleep has been very important. So we insisted on 9-8-7 rule: 9 hours of work, 8 hours of sleep, and 7 hours with family and friends. I think this is simple, but it's very important. If they don't get that level of adequate sleep and time with their family and friends, it's not going to be really worth it. So, as a leader, you always ought to think from your people's perspective, making them feel good about things. When they feel good about themselves, they actually contribute well. So it's a very important area that we need to chime in and give people resources to adapt to change. Because most of the times we don't address this question of what is in for me. So if you don't address this question of what is in for me, they are not going to be onboarded just because the change leader is on board. So the organizational change management and understanding the cultural norms are super important for it to be done. And it's a great topic that we can talk hours, but it's important. So one thing we are doing currently is for a company who has recruited all freshers and they are doing internship. So the caveat is the people should be trained and certified on ITIL to get us employment. So I'm saying a live example of you have to have an ITIL certificate to get a job. So that is my 2 pointers. Well, I think I'm loving this question because every time I speak with someone in DevOps, they say, "What the heck is IT service management?" And we don't need it. We are all good with that. You can never do some of these stuff without understanding the basic of service management. So one of the things is we have to educate the development team about the value of service management, and they cannot be in silos. There is a general gradual fitment needed, and if you don't pick that, you cannot make this stability really work uh, well. So it would be absolutely foolish to think that IT service management is not required for DevOps. So the customer experience is what we should focus. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether it's DevOps, it's service management, or lean. So our focus is on customer experience. So any product or service that is being deployed, is it actually doing the fit for purpose or fit for use? If you know that point very clear, then DevOps is trying to balance velocity and stability. So you have to get the why part of it, then the rest of things will follow automatically. And I like what um, Mark said. You need to understand where you fit in, and then try to see what is the scope within which you're trying to relate to that equation. Then it will all fit in well. No, I think the meeting and conferences is so valuable. These sessions like this are going to be important because I think we need to go away from reading books to actually having that personal conversation that Stefan said. I mean, that's how you build a relationship. You build an understanding of the whole ecosystem. So continuous learning comes in with being focused on these conferences and meetups, and just get out and talk with people. You learn a lot more than books.